Welcome to Will at Work. I'm Kevin. Today we're looking at the PC Engine Duo R. So, if you're not familiar, TurboGrafx in the United States was an 8-bit / 16-bit console that came out during the 8-bit era. It was still running on an 8-bit processor, but it had a 16-bit graphical processor, and however they made that all work, I don't know, but they had good success with it. It was very successful in Japan, less successful in the United States, but it still had a good following here in the United States. They eventually came out with a successor system, which was the SuperGrafx. We looked at that. I think it was like the second one we ever looked at. SuperGrafx didn't do well, and I don't know the whole real story behind that, but it just didn't go. And so NEC sort of doubled down on TurboGrafx for a while, and by adding the CD-ROM option to it. So if you already had like the TurboGrafx or the PC Engine, you could get a CD for it. And there was different models, and some were like, you know, you could put them inside a briefcase kind of thing. They kind of looked like one where you had like the CD and the core system, you know, as two separate things connected, etc. And then NEC started to sell the TurboDuo or the PC Engine Duo, right? And so that's what this is, PC Engine Duo. And there were three different models. The first one wasn't manufactured well or something, and it has bad capacitors in it. And that was just the PC Engine Duo, or TurboDuo, whatever. And it was then followed by the Duo R, which from all I understand is just, this is just manufactured better. And the capacitors don't fail you know, as quickly. And then they eventually came out with the Duo RX, and the RX added something like an additional 200K or something like that of memory, and it came with the 6-button joypad, which some people didn't like. They preferred the standard NEC one, you know, with the 2 buttons, whatever. Or maybe there was like a Pro Pad out there, I don't know. But either way, you know, that was kind of like the end there, and then, you know, eventually they came out with another successor system for it, which was the PCFX, and that was the last system that NEC released. So now, with all of these systems, you can make them all compatible with, you know, even that additional 200K by having like a super card or whatever for the CD games. And so all of them can be made compatible with each other. All the TurboGrafx are apparently compatible. It just depends on what card you're using or what ROM you're using, etc., to make it work. So anyway, you know, we got the standard D-pad, and then here you have a flip up, and you insert a standard HuCard or HuCard or whatever they call it. You know, they're very thin, like a credit card. And Sega Master System also had like 6 of these or something. Not very many anyway. You know, and you can slide it in there like that, put it down, and, you know, play a game, basically. And this was how TurboGrafx games came for quite a while, until they came out with the CD. And so, you know, you don't need to have anything in here. You can pop this open, and you've got a CD-ROM, and you can put in a CD-ROM game. Most of their games came in these CD cases. Even the HuCards often came. This is like a TurboGrafx. Crater Maze came in a CD case, and here the game itself comes in a CD case. And, you know, it's just compact disc, etc. And you can put it in and play it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try this out and see how it goes. We'll try the TurboGrafx HuCard as well as the ones I have with it. I also have a couple of burned games for the CD, and we'll see if those work as well. and all that fun stuff. So here we go. Let's switch over to the video side and see what happens. Looking at the PC Engine Duo R, this is Final Lap Twin, and I have the, this is a HuCard, or HuCard, or however you pronounce it, and it's seems to be working fine. Let's just do a quick lap. I am absolutely terrible at any kind of formula racing. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Good old AAA. It's got the highest scores in all the land. I mean, wouldn't this be better than that? Right? V520, V10. Maybe it uses more gas. Let's just go with this. So, you know, TurboGrafx, boy, I tell you, if you had one when it first came out, that must have been really something, because, you know, everybody else was 8-bit era. The NES graphics were the weakest of that era, because that started, you know, its life in 1983, and, you know, it was designed before that. They didn't rush things out that quick back then. You know, it's probably sitting around since '82. So it was really some dated hardware. Sega, you know, had the Master System, which had a much better graphical engine than the NES did. But of course, that was their second attempt. Didn't work, you know, to take on the NES. But, you know, it was an improvement over the SG-1000. So then you had, you know, the TurboGrafx with the, or, you know, PC Engine anyway, over in Japan. And for a while there, I believe it did better than the NES in terms of sales and popularity and things. It at least was very competitive. And yeah, they did really well for a while, and that's why it managed to have so many additions and add-ons and everything. And I remember some years, some of the gaming magazines would have, you know, the Turbo graphics. It would have something like Legendary Axe or Bonk's Adventure being like Game of the Year, etc. So you know, it for a little while there, it was the system. It was the system that, you know, you would want to have. But you know how it is. Arcade games that the NES had and all of those exclusive licenses and things just managed to do better. Okay, so that's that card. Now let's try this Crater Maze. This is a TurboGrafx 16 card. And let's see if this is compatible with you know, a TurboGrafx game right out of the box. No modification, no nothing. The card fits. Let's see. Well, that's not good. Now, to be honest, I've never used this TurboGrafx game. I probably should have when I had the TurboGrafx here when we were testing it, but I didn't have it handy. So it's also just possible this game just doesn't work. Or it just can't play a, you know, a TurboGrafx 16 game. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Who really cares about Crater Maze anyway, right? Am I right, everybody? But we'll keep it. We'll try it one day inside the TurboGrafx when I unbury it. We'll see if it actually functions. So let's now switch over to the CD, and we'll try this Avenger game. He does have, the guy that sold this to me, it does have on here Super SMG. I don't know if that means it requires a special card to play this or not, or if it'll just work as is. But let's give it a whirl, see what happens. Yeah, PC Engine Super CD-ROM 2 System Version 3. So that's what I was saying. Like, if you have this updated with the right ROM update, BIOS, whatever, it will play certain games, etc. And they continued to change that and upgrade that over the years. And you would have to, here 1991, we're getting pretty close there to, we're getting close to a 32-bit era at that point. We're full on with Super NES and Sega Genesis around 91, I think. We're very close too. Don't know what's going on. Now, this system had CD before everybody else did, before PlayStation or whatever, before, I don't even know what would be the first CD-ROM game system after this one. I imagine there were no 16-bit systems other than this one that had CD, right? Well, computers did, of course, but thinking of game systems, I mean, I'm the one who should know, but I'm thinking about it. 32-bit systems, you had the FM Towns Marty, Commodore CD32, 3DO, Jaguar, then eventually PlayStation, Saturn, etc., PCFX. But 16-bit era? Now, there was Sega CD, so I guess that would be, right? Sega CD was probably next. I think. Thinking about it. Because there's a lot of systems that came and went, too, It's kind of like, did any of them run on CD? I think so. Just thinking of it off the top of my head. All right, I'm going to hit start. Come on. Nobody knows what's going on here. It's going to be a shmup. I can already feel it. Yep. Yeah, you can kind of shoot diagonally. That's a twist on this whole thing. Trying to stay alive. That's all I'm doing. Isn't that what everybody does with these games? Just try and keep it going. I don't know, I keep grabbing those power-ups, but I don't know what the heck they're doing for me. Got like 2 of those. So are my lives, maybe? Oh. Oh, shit. Fuck. Oh, Crazy. That was it. That was the whole game. That was it. All right. So let's kill that. That seems to work fine. Load time's a little slow. It's probably like a single speed. You know, probably to be expected with an 8/16-bit system. It's going to end up being a bit slower. All right, let's see if any of these. I've only got 2 of these TurboDuo games work. Let's first try this one. One thing about a lot of these less popular consoles is that they didn't really have any copy protection on them. So if you burnt the game to a CD, they tended to work. And some of them had very crude copy protection that was easy to defeat. It took like PlayStation and Saturn and such. In fact, I'm not even sure about the Saturn. I think so, though. It took like those consoles to get like decent copy protection in order to get around the CDs. That's not to say that these will necessarily, the ones I burned, will work. Sometimes you need to have a special burner or whatever, but it looks like it's going to go. Yes. Forget how you pronounce that. I read it once or something, or somebody said it once. It's just Y and an S, but it's 8788, copyright NEC and Hudson Soft. So we'll assume this one came out in 90. So I doubt they put the copyright in the future on there. Yeah, I mean, this would have been really cool, man. I remember when I got my Sega Genesis when it first came out. I had one when it just came out, and it was amazing at that time. I had been in the 8-bit world for so long, practically, it felt like 10 years, that when we got to 16-bit, it was something else. It was like, wow, this is amazing. And it probably wasn't amazing, but you know what I mean. At that time it was. I played a lot of it, but I didn't keep it too long. I ended up getting rid of it, and then I got it again later. Cartridges were just really expensive. I mean, I know how that is for everybody. Like when you were a kid, getting a game was way out of reach, because game prices back then were the same as they are now, but back then it was twice what they are now. So it would be if you bought a game today, it would be $120 or something for a game, or $150 for a game. And that's what it felt like back in the 16-bit era when you were buying a game for $50 or $60. That was a lot of money. So you would only really want to go out and buy games that you knew that you were really going to play. But a lot of times I just felt as though it was a little bit easier on the computers, because you could pirate games on on the computer, and save money. I just didn't have it. Piracy is wrong. I get it, but there was no other way to play the games. What am I going to do? I didn't have any money. I was a kid. I couldn't go to my dad and be like, "Hey, Dad, can I have some money for a game?" He couldn't afford games either. It was just how it was. Now, if you were rich and you were pirating games, well, then shame on you. But I was poor. That's all we had. All right. Ancient is vanished. Is. Yes. Yes. A's. Yes. Ancient. Yes. Okay. Even when people got CD-ROMs for the first time on their PCs, they were all amazed by, CD-ROM audio. Wow, these games has this great soundtrack. It's rich, real music and everything. And it's got a little bit of video. It's got some really great graphics and stuff. But CD-ROM just enabled, there to be more dressing around the games. And for some games, that worked out really well. Others, not so much. Because then we had that whole thing of full motion video games, and most of those were rubbish. Loading times are slow. It's still chewing over here. Now, I will say that I think that, the CDRs probably aren't optimized in the same way that they might have wrote the games out originally. I'm just guessing, of course. I don't know. But I would imagine that, they probably had it written out in such a way that it was optimal. And here it's not. So the drive is like searching and, spinning. And it's just probably not as fluid as it would have been if I had a store-bought version. Because we just saw that one game, and that it had some load times, but it went pretty quick. Here it's just really munching on this, but it's still going. We'll give it a little bit more. I used to have a Commodore 64, and Commodore 64 was weird because it had a disk drive, which was a lot faster than the tape drive. And the disk drive, though, was really slow. And there was just, apparently, this is what I remember from being young, is that the disk there was a bug, and so it performed very slow to get the data off of the disk and into the system. And so they sold cartridges called Fast Load or Mach 5 or Final Cartridge or whatever you wanted. Fast Load was the most typical. And so you would put that Fast Load cartridge in, and your game would load like 5 to 10 times faster just by having that cartridge in. And nothing weird about it. Most games were sort of optimized for it. Now, there were some games that weren't compatible with it because, the system only had 64K of memory, and Fast Load probably had to occupy some sort of space in memory to say, there's a cartridge here, etc., and, interrupt some drive routines to make it run faster. And so some games didn't get on with that, but most games eventually were written to support Fast Load, and that was really kind of a weird product to sell. It was kind of like, you want your disk drive to work optimally, you buy this third-party cartridge, and then it would work really quick. The disk drive was it was also kind of intelligent. It had its own microprocessor in it. It wasn't like a dumb disk drive. And some guys would use copy protection and that processor in that drive to make it do stuff. And some of the people that cracked games back then, for piracy, were really smart. They would have to figure out some really clever tricks to make the games not only get around the copy protection, but there were some games that were so large that you couldn't put the crack you couldn't put the crack on the game because it wouldn't fit. It's really weird. All right, it's still chewing on this over here. Okay, here we go. File cabinet is not initialized. At least we got something back. What does that mean? Do you wish to initialize the file cabinet? Sure. File cabinet has been initialized. Woo! Boy, that took a long time to load that up. I guess it was trying to figure out the file cabinet. Let's see if we can actually get a little bit further while I sit here and reminisce with you about the olden days of video games. Sorry. Eventually, Commodore had instead of the 5 1/4 inch like floppy disks, they had the standard looking PC computer disks that were like 3 1/2 inch or whatever, but they didn't hold the same amount of data. That they didn't hold that 1.4 megabyte. But starring, looks like it's in English, huh? Adol Fina, Lair, Lilia, I'm just putting this video on just so we can get a little bit of a look at, you know, what this would have been like back in the day. And this is NES era, you know, going into the 16-bit era, but even then, like when you're just starting 16-bit and you're into like Genesis and Super Nintendo, they didn't have CD in the beginning. It took them a while to get Sega CD. So you'd be playing this and, you know, it would be light years ahead of what those systems had at the time, at least in terms of the video portion of it. So I can understand why the TurboGrafx did as well as it did. It was ahead of its time, basically. You know, it is interesting how they did the 8-bit processor with the 16-bit graphics. I think that's what that's about. Yeah, it's got to be. The reason that's interesting is because, like, you know, 8 bits is like 8 characters, right? And eight, you know, and it has an 8-bit address space. It can't typically target a 16-bit address space. Unless you double down on it somehow. Or you had some sort of helper processor or something in there that could figure that shit out. So if you were like going to target, like, say, you know, a 16-bit space, I don't know how they did it. That's weird. I mean, but that's probably something that processors and things did all the time. I mean, there was like always 16-bit and 32-bit and all this stuff. But, I mean, from what I understand, though, the CPU is usually the thing that would have the most bits in it, but maybe not. I think like maybe the N64, wasn't that like 128-bit in some places or something like that? Like in the core of the graphics processor or something? I don't know. Again, I don't know how they address that stuff. I don't know how you can be like, put this data there when you can't tell it where to go because you don't have the address space to target that. All right, I'm gonna stop this one. This is just your standard 2D RPG. It's just taking so long to load. We can kind of see that it works, which is good, but this is kind of a bummer for demonstration purposes. So I'm gonna try one more here. That should be quicker, I would hope. This will be Dracula X, which apparently people say is, some people say, this is the best Castlevania game of this era. And it's not even titled Castlevania or something, but it is part of the, you know, the Castlevania lore or whatever. Konami. I wonder how it works at like game companies sometimes, like in terms of how games get made initially. Like I know like a game like Resident Evil or something, like the top executives are like, time for another Resident Evil game. Let's get a team assigned and get people on it. And let's get a new one going. You know what I mean? But then there's probably like, you know, somebody's got to come out of something with original idea, you know, and be like, hey, I got this idea for a new Castlevania game. We would do this, you know. And then, I don't know, man, they must just go into meeting rooms and spitball it until they either decide to do it or they're just like, yeah, it's not going to work for us, Steve, you know. And then Steve's like, oh, I hate this place. I don't know. So this one's all in Japanese. I did look for an English translation of this one. I couldn't find it, but I don't think you need it other than know what's going on with the video segments. Uh-oh, look out. And I think we tried this when we were looking at either the original TurboGrafx that I had, because I had a multi-cart for that, or we were looking at the TurboGrafx Mini. Classic, whatever it was called. All right, let's hit start here. Let's move on. Okay, can't bypass it. We gotta watch the video. It's like, nope, you gotta watch. That's the early days of video segments too. Like, some games are just like, you're not skipping it. It's like, really? Luckily, we were right there anyway. 1993. So this is late. This NEC pad actually doesn't have the little switches on it with the rapid fire changes. That's kind of unusual. We'll be BIST today. It's kind of funny that the game is in Japanese, but they give you like the English alphabet to come up with your name. I never understand these things. Okay, let's go. Game start. It's like, I mean, imagine like if we were playing a game and it was in English and then like it was time to put your name in and like the keyboard was like, you know, in Serbian or something. You'd be like, Greek alphabet. All right. Guys are killing me that I can't bypass this. Oh, what just happened? Wow. Seriously? So apparently, if you hit run and select together, it throws you out to the beginning. Is that a bummer or what? So anyway, we don't really need to play this game, do we? Like, we all know this thing works. It's fine. It's working. We got kind of into the game there, and then it just quit on us. But so TurboDuo, it works. It's a system because it has games on it that are an extra 200K. So not quite a variant. It also has CD-ROM, etc. So we have kind of a unique system here in some respects, but it is ultimately just a variant of the TurboGrafx. But like other variants that have other separate libraries, Famicom Disk, Sega CD, what have you, tend to keep those as separate systems on the list. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you here shortly with something new.